All right, we are go for lunch.
Apparently called it a few seconds early. Good evening and welcome to the July 2nd, 2025 meeting of the Henrietta Town Board. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Here.
Councilmember Blanca,
Here.
Councilmember Barley,
Here.
Councilmember Stafford,
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin the meeting with a silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I make a motion to approve the June 11th, 2025 Town Board meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-245, 2025. Whereas McQuaid Jesuit High School, located at 1800 South Clinton Avenue, Rochester, New York, 14618, has donated $500 to the Town of Henrietta Recreation Department in order to sponsor the Movie in the Park Moana 2 on August 22nd, 2025. And whereas a check in the amount of $500 was received by the Director of Finance, therefore be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges this donation and thanks McQuaid Jesuit High School for their generosity.
Second.
So I'll note that not only do they make the donation, but they also have a number of students from the school show up and help with the program. So they've been doing this for a number of years. It's a really big help to the town, and we very much appreciate, again, both the donation as well as the donation of money as well as the donation of time. So thank you. Any else? Any comment from the public? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. And I'll vote up or invite up those doing a presentation for this Historic Site Committee's 2025 Historic Heritage Award.
Mr. Supervisor, members of the Town Board, I'm Tina Thompson, the Town Historian. And on behalf of the Historic Site Committee, I am very pleased to present the 2025 Architectural Heritage Award to Stuart Soloway of 656 Pinnacle Road. Becky is showing a poster that we made that shows the house. This property is historically significant because of the architectural style of the house and because of the individuals who lived there. This was once the home of Cyrus W. Baldwin, who was the grandson of Phineas and Rebecca Baldwin, and they established a home on Pinnacle Road near Calkins Road in 1807. Their youngest son, Charles, was a veteran of the War of 1812, and he and his wife, Sophia Wise, also established their home on Pinnacle Road. According to Eleanor Kausbach in her book Henrietta Heritage, John Wise built a blacksmith shop in 1814 in the Baldwin settlement that might have been taken over by Charles in 1816. Census records have Cyrus, Charles and Sophia's oldest son, living with them until he was in his late 30s. In 1858, Cyrus purchased a 50-acre farm that was located across the road from his father's farm, and this was purchased from a gentleman named Jefferson Branch, who we think built this house. The map on the poster shows that his neighbor on the eastern border was the Tinker Brothers farm. The following year, Cyrus married a widow, Elizabeth Walling Lee. Elizabeth had 3 children. Her oldest son, Eli, was 15. She had a daughter, Julia, who was 8, and we don't know the age of the youngest son. We don't know his birth date, but we think he was between the ages of 4 and 6. From the 1860 agricultural census, we learned that the dollar value at that time for Cyrus's farm was $4,000. He owned 2 horses, 3 milk cows, 2 working oxen, and 6 other cattle. Also 18 sheep and 12 swine. That year, his 50-acre farm produced 65 bushels of wheat, 250 bushels of Indian corn, that's what they called it at the time, 60 bushels of oats, 84 pounds of wool, 50 bushels of peas and beans, 15 bushels of Irish potatoes, 350 pounds of butter, and 5 tons of hay. Today, that $4,000 would have the purchasing power of about $155,000. Although it is no longer a farm, the cobblestone shed in the backyard is representative of the small outbuildings from the 1830s when the main house was probably built. This, we think, was used originally as a smokehouse. If you look closely at the basement cobblestones along the front of the house, you will notice a difference in size in the middle of that basement line. At some point in time, the front entrance to the house was closed off, and the side door became the main entrance to the house. Fortunately for us, former property owners were interested in maintaining this historic property. We are very grateful that Stuart Soloway is continuing to be a thoughtful and considerate caretaker of this piece of our history. Congratulations to Stuart.
The-
Do you want to give it to him?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's do it here. Yeah.
So Gary is the chair of our historic site committee meeting, or excuse me, historic site committee.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, we have special use permit application number 2025-021, Erie Station Road, West Henrietta Road, multifamily development by FSI 5500 LLC, Erie Station Road, that's near 5500 West Henrietta Road, to construct a multifamily housing development. Please state your name and your relationship to the project.
Hello, my name's Joshua Saxton. I'm a civil engineer at Pastor Associates, representing the client today. We were here a couple weeks ago for the last meeting. Public hearing was open. Kind of had the introduction to the project as well as the rezone. Answered some questions on it and some things came up. One of the bigger items, one of the requirements or requests was some of the view sheds of the area, knowing that we're kind of still in the preliminary stages, just something to, have on record and to get out there. Obviously, it's things that are going to progress as the project goes through. But we did provide a couple of visual studies from certain areas requested by the board, at least as the project stands now for input and any questions that they had. So obviously here to answer any questions for that, and then anything else that the board and the public may have for the project before it gets voted on.
Great. So Becky's walking through them.
And some of those, the view 2 and 3 are kind of, I would say, the most impactful ones because it's directly across from the single families.
Although from the looks of it, I mean, I can still see the crest of the hill behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like I said, it's preliminarily laid out now, especially with that area of cleaning it up as it goes forward. And like I said, more so at the planning board stage on exact heights, exact vegetation that's going to be there. A lot of it was kind of preliminary put with stock trees as kind of a potential visual, but obviously if it goes forward and as it moves on, that berm height can change, the building heights, what trees go there. All that stuff subject to change with the final design. But obviously this was just kind of the initial go.
Right, and that potential change will be dictated as part of the site planning process. Or lack thereof. Questions, comments from the board with regards to the view sheds?
Were the views, were the neighbors, did the neighbors get this too, or where could they?
I know-
It is up on our website. It
Okay.
is available.
But they wouldn't, okay, so they'd have to look for, okay.
There really isn't a good way to mail it out.
I didn't know if they may have been Senate but okay. I was thinking the views of the apartments on Lehigh were gonna be on the other side of the berm and not be able to be viewed so by the folks on the south side of Lehigh.
On Erie.
I'm sorry, Erie Station, excuse me, I keep saying Lehigh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sort of like that, sort of like view 3 there, you
Mhm.
can't see them, but if you go to view 2, you can
See them
view
slide.
you can view those.
Yeah, and some of it's subject to the vegetation that's there. Obviously it can grow more, but it's that balance we were trying to go with where we didn't want to put so much screening vegetation there that now it's going to be so high that it's impacting the overarching view. So I think it's a balance that, we're going to have to work out with, obviously the town and the residents as it moves forward with the actual locations of, what's kind of the happy medium if they want, because burying completely, it's not realistic just given the grade, but obviously we want to get it down as low as possible to maintain that line of sight while also, providing the screening as well. So
Yeah, from our meeting last week, I just thought the buildings were gonna be on the north side of the berm,
Okay.
so the berm,
There is, I mean, more than a berm there, this gets into, there's a drop off. And so what you're looking at mostly is the second story of those 2-story,
Mhm.
I forgot what you call those ones, or the
townhome apartment.
Yeah. So, they're looking at essentially other residences. If you think about it, looking back the other way, those people are going to be looking at those people's houses. So that's not an uncommon view. When you get into an industrial view, that was one of the complaints and part of why there was an interest in rezoning this to residential as opposed to industrial.
Mhm.
And as was stated, if you bring that berm up and put a bunch of trees on top of that, well, first you're creating a 2-story berm, well, about 1 story, a little over 1 story berm. Not easily done, and then now I have all that runoff heading towards the road.
Mhm.
Whereas now it's running down the other side and going towards their stormwater ponds.
I was just saying what my impressions was from the last meeting, but I thought they were gonna be lower or hidden more.
Understood.
Yep.
Any other questions on it? Is there anything else you want to share with the board before I open it up to comments from the public?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered the rest of the stuff, but I thank you for producing these. I will say depending on the look of the clubhouse, you may want to not, you may want to allow some view down this front row into it and not bury it behind trees.
Yeah.
Because from what I saw of what the proposed building front was supposed to look like, you know, it could be a nice signature piece.
Yeah, I think that's one of the compromising things as we move forward of, obviously right now we're doing that, but what strategically of keeping trees and vegetation there, we'll obviously work through that with the town and the residents.
Do you know if the plan, I noticed the monument sign is there. Are they gonna just reuse that for the complex sign?
Possibly,
You see in view 5, the former Delphi signs out front.
yeah,
Obviously it looks like they've painted over the
the old,
Delphi.
yeah, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. I think that'll be something that comes up in the, probably be the easiest because it's already there, so I don't have to go through variances or anything for additional
Right.
signage.
Well, and it's also, you know, it's got a not quite cobblestone, but a stone. Well, maybe it is, I can't tell. You know, but it's got a nice stone look to it. I
Mhm.
think it fits in well with the neighborhood, which might be why they put it there.
Yeah.
Technical Center of Rochester might want to go away, but. All right. Anything else from the board? Then I'm going to open it up and, you know, sit at the side table. Is there anybody from the audience who would like to speak on this with regards to this application? Come on up.
Michael Heading, 5628 West Henrietta Road. In one of the views of like the 3-story buildings, I don't know if it was like view 5 or whatever, it appears like their rendition is like 2-story buildings. Was that like kind of scaled to actually replicate the height of 3-story buildings or not?
Those ones look to me like 3 stories. What's not on these renderings are the windows.
Okay,
But the thing, keep in mind, and you can see from the pond, that is going down from the road.
maybe it was one of the views through the cobblestone house from West Henrietta. Yeah.
Some
So,
of that can be,
That,
Some of that's like kind of
right, except that
into
if
the
you remember,
ground,
there's a berm
right.
behind that's blocking the bottom portion of that building.
I gotcha.
yeah, I think it's on, the buildings there were the actual shells of the actual architectural, so it's,
Elevation wise, it was, okay. That was my only question.
Except it's gonna have windows on it.
Yeah,
And then, like I said, eventually the berms could theoretically change location, size, vegetation.
yeah, like in that little, I guess that little nook in between the existing building there, there's, planning board, or if we figure out, vegetation or any other type of screening that, the board.
One of the comments I'll make for the planning board is that I would expect there to be some vegetative screening, but that'll be done as part of the landscaping plan through the conservation board and the planning board.
Right.
But one of the things that was talked on, so all of his existing trees are staying. And then the idea was they could add trees to this berm, whether trees, shrubs, whatever makes the most sense from a vegetative screening standpoint.
Okay, that's all I had.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone online? Okay, then hearing nothing further, I'm going to close the public hearing for special use permit application number 2025-021, Erie Station, West Henrietta Road, multifamily development. Next up, we have a related public hearing. It's for proposed local law to amend the official zoning map of the town of Henrietta to rezone approximately 40.369 acres of land located at West Henrietta Road and Erie Stations Road, being a single parcel with tax ID number 189.01-1-19.2 from industrial with specifics to residential R215. So the industrial with specifics had to do with when they made this area allowed Delphi to build. I'll note that the eastern parcel where the former Delphi building currently sits, that will remain in its industrial with specifics zoning. However, the larger portion to the west would be rezoned to residential R215. That is a designation that allows multifamily residences. It allows single family, multifamily, and not a whole lot more other than what's normally in residential areas like churches, things like that, fire halls, stuff like that. So, any questions, comments on this? Obviously, the two are interrelated, so the discussion of one kind of covers the discussion of the other. I will note that there are other areas by that are also residential R215. So we're not creating just a single spot zone. This is, to the west of here, you have Erie Station Village, which is all, again, multifamily. So any questions, comments on the rezone? Then hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed law to amend the official zoning map of the town of Henrietta to rezone land from industrial with specifics to residential R215. Rob, do you want to present the resolution?
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 12-246, 2025. To make a secret determination, issue a negative declaration, and adopt the local law number 9 of 2025 to amend the official zoning map of the town of Henrietta to rezone approximately 40.369 acres of land located at West Henrietta Road and Erie Station Roads, being a single parcel with a tax ID of 189.01-1-19.2 from industrial with specifics to residential R215.
Second. I think that's one of our longest summaries ever. There's no conditions on this resolution. I'm going to read the ones that are on the next one. Basically for, because again, they kind of go together. For the special use permit, we did have conditions on that approval. That the approval is limited to the proposal as presented and inconsistent with the application. Should changes be proposed which are materially inconsistent with the proposal, the developer will be required to either amend the special use permit or apply for a new one, including possibly requiring additional seeker review. The applicant and developer will comply with the transitional buffers detailed in Town Code Section 295-60E. And I'm actually going to amend that when I propose it, that as well as the expanded buffers discussed at the public hearings. So that Number three, that the development of the proposal shall require site plan review by the planning board, obviously. And four, the applicant shall provide any easements required by the planning board as identified during site plan review. I'm actually going to add a number five. I missed that earlier. I apologize. Is that heavy construction equipment remain outside the transition buffer to the historical homes. So as you remember, as was discussed in the meetings, some of these historic homes have cobblestone basement walls and heavy equipment, especially bulldozers and excavators, operating near them could create damage for those basements. So that's kind of tied to number two. That's why we had the expanded buffer, is that any earthwork was outside that buffer, but I just wanted to make sure we have that on there. Is the applicant fine with these conditions?
Yep.
All right, because we want to rezone it if we're not moving forward. All right. Any other comments on the rezone? Any from the public or from online? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 12-247, 2025 to approve special use permit application number 2025-021 to allow the construction of proposed multifamily project located on Erie Station Road near 5500 West Henrietta Road on the former Delphi property.
Second.
And I will note, as stated earlier, that I'm putting this forth with the altered condition 2 that includes expanded buffers as discussed at the public hearings, and a condition number 5, which says that heavy construction equipment will remain outside the transition buffer to the historical homes. I guess it's just historic.
How about construction times itself? I didn't see that on the EAF.
That's part of, that's not typically put down as a condition since that's under the noise ordinance,
Okay, just
but make sure they obey the noise ordinance, especially with there being a lot of homes nearby.
right. I don't know if they want them built on Sunday like some other projects have.
Any questions, comments on the SUP approval?
Nope.
Anything from the public or online? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations. So,
One,
Mr. Imburgia, congratulations.
I mean,
Not listening.
yeah, the seeker was, I know we brought it up. Was that voted on too? I know we just.
The
That's
first
included.
resolution did the seeker
Negative.
adopted, it basically adopted the seeker and then made the rezone.
Okay.
So it basically, we declared ourselves lead agency, adopt and approved parts 2 and 3, issued a negative declaration. Then we adopted these are the 3 resolve clauses. The second resolve clause adopts the local law. The third one requires that it be filed with the New York Secretary of State. But technically it doesn't happen until that occurred. And then the second resolution, the first resolve clause addresses all of the Exhibit A, the criteria for granting the SUP. And then the second clause adopts those. It basically completes that portion of the seeker review adopts those, and then the third clause is to actually do the approval with the now 5 conditions. So
Thank you.
rather than do it as a separate resolution, since it doesn't make sense to do seeker without the action, you kind of
makes
put them
sense.
together. Yep.
Thank you so much.
You
Have a
bet.
good 4th.
You'll get a copy of those 2 resolutions. Next up, we have a public hearing for a proposed local law to amend the official zoning map of the town of Henrietta to rezone approximately 5.03 acres of land located adjacent to the Pinnacle Lutheran Church at 250 Pinnacle Road from residential R120 to residential R250. Could you hold on one second? Mike Heading? I just want to make sure Craig, could you follow him up and make sure he contacts me about, I just wanted to make sure if you're interested in pursuing, as you know, we're looking to go after a historic preservation grant for historic properties in the Western District. If you're interested in participating in that, reach out, let me know one way or the other. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. It's specifically at that intersection, homes near that intersection. As my understanding, I do think it can do residential. I think the one exclusion is houses of worship, I think are excluded. They're covered by a different grant. That was my reading of it. Okay, so send me an email. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, sorry. I didn't realize he was going to up and leave so quickly. I just wanted to make sure I caught him on that because the deadline is July 31st. So.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the town board. I'm John Sharaba with Land Tech, representing both the buyer, Mr. Lupavone, and the church, which are the owner of the property regarding this rezoning application. I know the board's very familiar with this. We had the public hearing back on June 11th. We had 5 speakers regarding this project. That basically can sum up the questions that from the public were really 2. One, landscaping. Our neighbors to the north on Bell Tower land, their property is zoned R215. I made a commitment to this board and the planning board that we'll stake out that property line and work closely with those neighbors to make sure that we can either incorporate the existing landscaping or improve the landscaping on our future plans. And then the second major point of the whole project to this point has been Mr. Sand, who lives east and adjacent to our access point on Stone Road. He's very concerned about drainage. As we all know, we have to adhere to the stormwater permits, and we'll be looking at that very closely with Mr. Martin as we move forward in the planning phase. Other than that, I think the project fits the community, and I didn't see much opposition related to that, and we hope that the board sees fit to rezone it this evening.
If you were on that street, was it 2 Wednesdays back now?
Yeah.
When we had that
Rainstorm.
massive rainstorm, you can see why he's concerned.
Yeah.
Is the water sheeting off of that property to the north and across your vacant parcel inundates his property. So it's not so much water coming from your property, but if any ability to help them out and intercept that would be, I'm sure, very much appreciated by the individual. So for those unaware, this is a little bit different than the previous one. This is not a special use permit. These are going to be individually owned homes, so it's actually a subdivision, which next step is planning board. They'll be the ones who put any conditions on the approval. This is the rezone, and then after they do their preliminary subdivision plan, because it's going to be a cluster development, they'll come back to the town board for approval of the open space. In this case, the open space is going to be predominantly stormwater ponds. But because again, when you look at the volume of water that hits this area, that facility needs to be upsized a little, is what it looks like to me. Again, not even your stuff, that's just the existing conditions. Unfortunately, when the development was built to the north, the stormwater regulations aren't quite where they are today. So I will just say, we appreciate all the feedback in neighborhood meetings and public hearings and Mr. Bravone's willingness to work with the neighbors and to build something that fits with the area, as well as, again, also helps potentially address some of the existing issues with drainage that are there today. So that's very much appreciated.
Yeah, I have some pictures of that storm, and I can understand why he's very concerned about the drainage. I mean, the trees in his backyard, the water was up to the trees when I was.
I'd love to see those at some point.
Look at them right now.
Yeah.
Well, like what I'll do is I'll send out an email to the town board so you can reply and get them back.
Yeah, we definitely want to make sure Mr. Sand is taken care of. I mean, even putting more fill on his side, maybe we can help him out. We'll work on that.
Yeah, I was thinking, maybe like I said, your property kind of arms back there, and what's not yours, I think, is town land. We can hopefully put something that channels that into the stormwater pond. So
Yeah.
Sounds good. Any other questions from the town board?
No.
Again, this is our third or fourth hearing on this one, so it's anything from the public? Any comments from the public? Coming up, if you can, yep, thanks.
Millie Safranek, Pinnacle Road resident, and this is really pretty minor, but I have a son that's in the Boy Scout troop that meets there, and recently the Boy Scout troop built a shed that's right there on the edge of the property. So the troop was a little concerned that something was going to happen with the shed, so I just wanted to put that out there.
So is it currently on the land that's being sold, or is it on the land that is staying with the church?
I'm not entirely sure. It's
Okay,
right on
let's-
the edge.
Let's just put this, depending on, go ahead and come on up. But if it's, obviously, if it's on the land that is being sold, I assume, it would be no issue, Lou, for you to have that moved? Okay, great. So, just since Lou is away from the microphone, Mr. Lou Bavone said that they do have an agreement that anything like that would be moved off of the property being sold over to the church area.
Mr. Dave Gehring is here too, and he's also a member of the church and agrees with that statement.
Great. Come on up.
Yes, my name is David Gehring with Pinnacle Lutheran Church. I would just reiterate what was just said, that the church is committed to working with the developer and the Boy Scout troop. They're our troop, so we will definitely be looking at a good location on site to relocate the shed along with some of the other appurtenances there, the dumpster and some of the other facilities.
I recognize we've done a few of your Eagle Scouts.
What's that?
I said we've had a few resolutions for Eagle Scouts from the Pinnacle Lutheran. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Been hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed local law to amend the official zoning map to rezone land adjacent to Pinnacle Lutheran Church from residential R120 to residential R215.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-248, 2025. To make a secret determination, issue a negative declaration, and adopt local law number 10 of 2025 to rezone approximately 5.03 acres of land located at 250 Pinnacle Road from residential R120 to residential R215.
Seconded.
So again, as mentioned, there's no conditions on the rezone. Any conditions like the two things we've discussed would be on the subdivision approval. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Next up, I have a public hearing for a proposed, well, actually, congratulations. We- we-
Let's see.
Thank you. Next up, I have a public hearing for the proposed local law to amend the zoning code of the town of Henrietta to clarify uses allowed with a special use permit and prohibited uses in planned commercial districts. So as discussed previously, the current code actually allows car dealerships in the planned commercial district, which for those who are unfamiliar, it's the area essentially to the east of Marketplace Mall. So Highland Drive and Marketplace Drive. The funny thing is you will not find that as an allowed or permitted use anywhere in the code. It's in the prohibited use section where it says these uses are prohibited except this one. Well, that's a pretty strange way to write the code because again, someone said, I swear it was a use and we couldn't find it. And then he finally located it. So what we've done is any of those uses that were in that exception clause were moved up to the permitted section. And now what the prohibited says is all the uses prohibited in, it's essentially what are prohibited in a commercial district. They're prohibited here, except those that are expressly permitted above. So that way you can find them. One of the other things that we discussed, you know, for those who are unaware, car dealerships in the commercial district are only allowed on West Henrietta Road between Jefferson and Lehigh Station Road. There's a few pre-existing dealerships elsewhere, but that's where all the car dealerships, hence why that's kind of become Dealership Row. It's not just that they want to be near other car dealerships, that's the only place they can have a car dealership. We've talked about in the PCD, we certainly don't want dealerships up and down Highland Drive. And in most of the zone, the one area that we thought where it would make sense to leave it is what's essentially the area around the former movie theater. The movie theater has closed. It's a unique building. It's hard to find a tenant for it. It's a bit off the beaten track. And so if a dealership wanted to come in, let's say like a Carvana or somebody like that, and open up there, the way a number of us have looked at it on the town board is we'd rather see that than see that building sit empty and lifeless, especially since it's can be problematic for whatever reason. People seem to like to try to break into the movie theater. So there've been a lot of arrests there, and a lot of break-ins. So we'd much rather see that building being used. The way we wrote the local law, it allows it only on the west side of Marketplace Drive. Basically, the PCD starts south of Jefferson Road, so there would not be a car dealership on Jefferson Road. And we basically say to within, I'd have to look at the local law to remember what that distance is. But it's something like to within 1,000 feet of Highland Drive. So again, it can't come around the corner. It's mostly the movie theater. There's a couple other smaller parcels just south of the movie theater that could also in theory be part of a dealership, although I would say that some of them are small, would have to combine together in a dealership. But someone had asked, is it new or used? It's a car dealership. It can be either. But it's a dealership, which basically means it has the service station and the showroom. So it's not just a used car lot. That's a separate thing. Used car lots are not allowed there. Any other questions? Any other comments from the board?
No.
Anything from the public? Right, then hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed local law to amend the zoning code of the town of Henrietta to clarify uses allowed within with a special use permit and prohibited uses in a planned commercial district. Can I get my next resolution?
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-249, 2025 to approve and or ratify the following agreements.
Second.
Any comments, discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Hold on 1 minute while I get back to the right screen. Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 12-250, 2025 to authorize bills payable and any associated contracts or agreements for June 17th, 2025 through today, July 2nd, 2025.
Seconded.
Well, notice, I'll mention three of the larger items on this bills. There was a street sweeper for about $310,000. Earl sweeper was having problems. A number of the folks who've been driving that have thanked us. The new sweeper does a much better job cleaning up our streets. It helps keep the gutters clear, which again, for like the storm events we've been having, very important. It's also about $245,000 in paving. We've been out paving roads. That's just a start. We've got a lot more to do. And then it's $218,000 for our LED lease. I will note that the difference in our utility bill from RG&E, I think it was from February through May, so I guess about a quarter, maybe a little more. In 2023, it was about $340,000. In 2024, with the upgrades to the LEDs, it's gone down to $150,000. And then looking at the electrical usage, there'll actually be more decrease from that, because whereas they did switch us properly from service class 1 to service class 2, I don't think they've updated the wattage of all the bulbs, because I look at the electrical consumption. They're not metered, so they're not actually measuring the meter. They basically take the amount of time that the lights are on times the wattage of those fixtures, and that's how they calculate the electrical usage. It didn't drop significantly. So most of this savings was the change from service class 1 to service class 2, as well as other, we used to pay RG&E to upkeep the lights. We've now taken that over and paid for by these savings. So we should, again, the majority of the savings for the first 10, 12 years or so go to pay down that lease, so that there's nothing's being paid for by taxpayer dollars. The balance of those savings are going towards the funds to maintain, because obviously street lights get hit, street lights get blown down. They're too new to burn out, or if they do burn out right now, they're covered by warranty. But that was part of that LED upgrade. So I just wanted to share that, because a lot of people, we talked about these numbers. We're now actually starting to see the numbers come in. So I will, when we get the updated, I know this will shock people, RG&E was doing the billing wrong. Our finance department has been working with them to get it all straight. Huge shout out to Centrica, Steve Tacomi from Centrica. They have gone above and beyond servicing the town for this, because again, they've had to deal with these utility companies that don't always know what's on the poles, and often have their databases just don't match what's out there in the street. And then even when we send in the corrections, they don't always get put in there. So he just recently went through every single one to make sure they were all switched over, to make sure the billing matches reality. So again, huge shout out to Steve Tacomi and Centrica as a whole. Any other questions, comments?
That's a huge savings.
It is.
Yes, that's great.
Then hearing and seeing no further comments, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have Resolution 12-251, 2025, to approve a chicken coop at 959 Calkins Road, a designated historic site under Article 10 of our town code.
Second. I don't have a whole lot of comments. Our Historic Site Committee reviewed this. They recommended that the chicken coop be approved. It meets the town code requirements for chickens. It also was done in a style that doesn't clash. And then it's also more recently, they've added a significant white picket fence that even makes it hard to see the coop from the road. So there's a picture of the coop up right now. Obviously, that's not the view from the road. That's a view from up close. So,
Yeah, from the road, you can hardly see it.
yeah.
I mean, it's on a hill too, so it.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have Resolution 12-252, 2025, to approve a deck at 3490 East Henrietta Road, a designated historic site under Article 10 of the Town Code.
Second.
So I'll note that per the discussion at the workshop and the comments from the chair of the Historic Site Committee, we added a condition that the proposed side deck addition must be painted to match the present porch on the house as specified in the letter from the Historic Site Committee Chair dated June 27, 2025. Any questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-253, 2025, to issue a secret negative declaration and commit to matching funding for the pursuit of a pro-housing infrastructure grant to extend Fair Avenue.
Seconded.
So this and the next four will be similar resolutions. We are pursuing roughly $10 million in grant funding. I'm not sure how much we will get. This particular one is under the Pro Housing Infrastructure Grant. It's open to us because we are a pro housing community, or as I like to put it, we are the pro housingist community. And what I mean by that is the threshold of growth is 3%. We had 11%. That's higher than any other town in the region. Almost every other town was below 7%. So hopefully that will help us get this grant. What we're looking to do is extend Fair Avenue south and east out to East Henrietta Road directly across from Valiant. It would form a four-way intersection. Right now, people kind of snake through the parking lot of the Dome and out through that little side road that's kind of tucked away between the former Growmore and the ice cream place, Abbott's, thank you. This would move it further south and presumably with the amount of development there, we're hoping that at some point it would meet the warrants to add a light at the intersection with Valiant to make it safer for people to get in and out there. There is a requirement that the light be added at the north end of Fair Avenue on Calkins Road before the apartments that are going in near the library, before they get their C of O. So the light has to be in before they can get a C of O. The plan would be for, we had a discussion with the property owners through which this road would go. They would essentially grant us the right of way for free. And the reason they would do that for free, being perfectly blunt, this road will make their property more valuable. But the whole idea of this grant is to encourage the construction of new housing units. So the idea would be that area would be multifamily, similar to the apartments, the Fair Avenue apartments you already see there. And then we've had discussion, so the drawing is up there today. The green portions, the bright green, that's the new housing proposed. The red is commercial or civic. And so one of the other things we've had discussions with is the owner of the Dome property about the possibility of a affordable senior housing complex on the western side of the Dome. In talking with the folks from New York State HCR, I don't remember exactly what that stands for, but they're the folks who oversee this grant. They said that I had mentioned we were looking to do something similar to what the Cornerstone Group built at Marketplace Mall, and they said, "Oh, definitely work with the Cornerstone Group. They have a phenomenal reputation here, so it will actually increase our chances." So we reached out to them. They are very much in favor of this project. They're going to put something together for us. So again, if this grant goes through, it will pay for the roads. The good news is it won't cost taxpayers a dime. I believe this one is, so this one has a higher matching commitment, but that matching commitment would come from mostly in-kind work. And for anything that's not in-kind work, we would reach out to essentially to the Cornerstone Group to help with that. So this would bring in the road, the storm. We would also be relocating the sanitary sewer because there is a large old sanitary sewer main that runs through there, and it bisects both parcels, which makes them hard to develop. That's part of why it was developed to the west, where there were none of that infrastructure in the way. So it would relocate the sewer to the road to get it out of the way and make it better for development. At the same time, we would upgrade that sewer because it's an old, I believe it was a clay. I think it's clay, or it's an older sewer pipe. So we would go to a modern sewer pipe, and we would probably upsize it as well. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, how many units do you think would be built in that area?
So based on I don't know, because I can tell you what the code limits are. The code limits would be about 400, and to give you a feel for that, to the apartments that exist today are about 370. So it essentially about double the amount of units present. Which again goes back to, as we talked about a couple things. If you go back to I think that was first, I don't know if it was in the 2003 comprehensive land use plan. It was definitely in the 2011 update. It talked about a town center. One of the things we've been having a challenge, we have that lot next to the library is for a commercial, and they've been trying to get a restaurant to come in there for years. It's been a challenge, and I have to believe that if you now have essentially 800 units all within a walkable distance, that will help the chance of getting the commercial in there. If you look, the old Growmore property, that stays in this layout, stays commercial. The southern half of that parcel, also owned by the Moores, that could be residential or commercial, their choice. Right now, we just have it labeled. We labeled them all as residential just to get to that maximum number of units. And then the other parcels are owned by the Iacullis, and I think the Iacullis have a partner in the one that's right along the road. So again, the idea is to finish out, get that housing. The advantage there, again, with like the affordable senior housing, the project they did at Marketplace Drive, it sold out on day one. It has a waiting list of 150% of the occupancy. every single affordable senior housing project in Henrietta has a long waiting list. The average wait time is 3 years. That's too long, especially as our population continues to age. So we're taking steps to try to make locations for affordable senior housing. One of the challenges you run into affordable housing is what's known as NIMBY, not in my backyard. Everyone says we need affordable housing, just don't put it near my house. The advantage of locations like this, they're not that close to somebody's house. So there's already other senior apartments nearby. You know, this is also as walkable to the rec center, to the library, to Wegmans, to drugstores, to bottle returns. It's got a lot going for it. So, and again, I do think by extending Fair Avenue out to East Henrietta will help with the traffic there as well. And if it ends up as a light, it could be a way for people to bypass the intersection of East Henrietta and Calkins and bring down some of the traffic load there. So, any other questions, comments? The hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-254, 2025, to issue a seeker negative declaration and commit to matching funding for the pursuit of a recreational trail program grant for the Riverwalk Trail.
Second.
So our local waterfront revitalization plan talks about this Riverwalk Trail. We want to do it as a Seneca Heritage Trail. We've had some discussions with a few members of the Seneca Nation. Unfortunately, for those who aren't aware, there are two governing bodies for the Seneca Nation, and they don't necessarily get along. So we're kind of caught in the middle of there. So right now, we're just calling it the Riverwalk Trail because I won't do a Seneca Heritage Trail without the Seneca Nation being a part of it. But this would be the first portion of it, which would run from East River Road, just south of Fairwood Drive, out down to the end of Farrell Road Extension. And the reason we're stopping there is the process to get under the thruway is going to be a complicated process. So we want, there is a means to go under there, the bridge. If you've ever been down there, it's very walkable. But we have to get the approval from the New York State Thruway Authority, and they're notorious as being one of the more difficult state authorities to work with. So for now, we're focusing on the northern section. This will require some land acquisition from two homeowners. The RG&E is going to grant us a trail access agreement. They do it that way instead of an easement because the Public Service Commission, if they grant an easement, requires that they charge the full market value for the land. If they do it as a trail easement or a trail access agreement, they can do it for us for free. What we will do for them is we will put fencing along the trail where it goes near their facility off of East Henrietta Road. It's called the Rochester Area Reliability Project, or RARP. It's a substation and other equipment. And then it will also include the construction of a bridge over the creek that is the outlet of Lake Pamela. So this particular grant is 80-20, so it's a much smaller matching grant, much easier for us to accomplish. Any questions? Oh, basically where it's coming out at the southern end. So right now there is a road that takes us back to our pump station. So that would be what we're going to use for the temporary terminus, southern terminus of the trail until we can continue it farther and under the thruway. Any questions, comments? And hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca.
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 12-255-2025 to issue a seeker negative declaration and commit to matching funding for the pursuant of a New York BRICS grant for the acquisition of the Dome Arena.
Second.
So this one is probably the most controversial, if you can call it that, of the ones. This is also an 80-20, so our matching commitment would be 20%. In this case, the 20%, as we talked about, a portion of that land would become a affordable housing, and so the idea is if 80% of that value is on the rest of the parcel and 20% is on that, Cornerstone would essentially buy that portion, and therefore we wouldn't have to spend a dime on the matching grant requirement. Cornerstone essentially would pick up the matching grant. Why are we looking at the Dome? For a couple of reasons. We don't have a community center. We've had a number of organizations come to us for a community center. And in fact, Senator Jeremy Cooney just got us a $40,000 grant to essentially put together a plan to create a community center. What I've asked him is, can we hold on to that? Because if we get this grant, then what I would want to use that $40,000 would be for the architectural and or engineering to do the modifications to the building as necessary to create the spaces for the community center. In addition, so early on, I don't know, probably 6-7 years ago, we brought the person who runs our gymnastics, we brought them on full-time. Since they have come on full-time, our participation in gymnastics has doubled. In addition, we have taken over the operation of the Special Olympics gymnastics program. And we've also added a Ninja Warrior program, all in that space. If you've ever been over there, it is packed to the gills. What we would do is we would move the gymnastics over into what's called Minette Hall. It's not the domed portion, it's the other portion of that facility. And we would essentially double their space. We would carve out a couple other specialized recreation facilities over there. And then again, the remainder would most likely be what we would use for the community center. So in addition, then the dome itself would be used. So if there's ever an incident at the high school with a fire or, God forbid, a active shooter scenario, you need to have a congregation location. The dome would work really well for that. In addition, our high school is currently considered a congregation location should there be a incident at Gannett. There's multiple, it's not the only one. There's like different portions of the area of Gannett are to evacuate to a different location. But obviously if school's in session, that becomes problematic. And so we could use this for that. And then anyone who was around during the pandemic knows how useful that was as a point of distribution. If we ever had another pandemic or let's say a hepatitis outbreak, anything we would need to do point of distribution, it's a great facility. Right now, they've put together a program using the high school. They put together a program, wouldn't be able to be as big, but using the rec center. This would allow them to have one location. We would always know where it is because essentially the way we would set this up is that any point of distribution would take priority over whatever else is happening in the dome. The other thing I'll say is I consider the dome, I don't know that it's registered. I consider it iconic or historic. It's been there since 1972. It's in one of the iconic pieces of architecture in our town. And I would hate to see it go away. Unfortunately, post-pandemic, event space is not a lucrative business. You've seen a lot of event-based places close down, including the Dome. And so I'm afraid that whoever comes in would demolish it. And I would not want to see that happen because, again, I think it's a valuable resource. There's been some questions about whether we would continue to have events. That's to be determined. I wouldn't start out that way. And what we would take a look at is if we have a lot of available time in the Dome itself, we could then take a look at, do we hire a company to run those events for us, and maybe we even set up that contract. If I'm not sure what's allowed in state contracting in that regards, but the way I would want to do it is that they would operate off of a percentage of revenue so that, again, we're not paying anything. It's only additional income to the town is how I would want to set that up if we're going to do it at all. But as of right now, again, that's a bit further down the road for a future town board to make a decision. The good news is the facility was upgraded not too long ago. They put over $10 million of improvements into it, including an all-new HVAC facility, all new lights. So it's in really good condition. And the other good news is that the owner was willing to sell it at a loss. So as it's a real estate deal that hasn't been finalized, I prefer not to talk about those numbers just now. But we've had discussions with them, and obviously then without getting the grant, it isn't going to happen. Plain and simple. We can't afford it otherwise. But done well, like I said, if we can get this full grant, and with that, the deal for the affordable senior housing, again, it shouldn't cost us much at all to take it over. Obviously, there'd be some additional operational costs. Hopefully the expanded revenues from the recreation program will cover that. If not, again, we can look at supplementing that with potentially, having a handful of events throughout the year if we decide to go that route. So questions, comments?
I can say I'm not 100% sold yet on that idea of the Dome, just so you know. So if we can still apply for this, but if we decide we're not going to purchase the Dome, we could turn this down. I mean, is this all in one, like under one?
I don't know exactly how that works. I mean, obviously, if you can't get to a deal, you can't get to a deal, and then you turn it down. They just don't typically want you applying for the grant if you're not going to go through with it. But the point being, if we don't get a price that you're comfortable with, that's a reason to turn it down. If you don't want to do this at all, no matter what price we get for it, then you should vote no, because they don't want us to pursue it and then turn it down, because will have already turned someone else down to get it for us. So
I can say I'm happy to hear that it's had a lot of upgrades. I don't want to.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
That it's just a money pit for us.
Right.
It's one of the things I'm concerned about.
Yeah. So I've got, again, it's confidential information, but I can have the operator from, as we move to this stuff and make the, like I said, first question is going to be, do we even get the grant? But once we have that, we can take a look at, what are those costs? He's shared those with me. We went over them. What the revenues they're making today. But as an example, it's a decent amount of money that they get from like the RV sales that go on there. The challenge they've got, they have to pay taxes on the property. We don't.
Right.
So that's their, the taxes and the utilities are their biggest. Obviously, we would still have to pay utilities. But the point being, if you've now taken the taxes off the table, the revenues we generate either from the gymnastics and other recreational activities and or the potential, like I said, if we decide to continue doing the RV sale type events, those could pay for all the utilities as well as the upkeep.
Yeah, the utilities would be a lot more obviously running a 7-day-a-week operation versus a, once in a while when they have an RV show or they have some, I know.
Although I don't think they did upgrade the LEDs, so I don't think I don't know what they do in terms of turning the temperature down. Maybe, there'd be some savings. I'm just saying it. I don't think it's or some additional cost to us because for running it more. But again, I don't think they. I do think they keep the HVAC going because.
Right. Yeah, and I know they have, some clam bakes there once in a while and some others sit.
Well, and they have a couple sports. They were doing that pickleball for a while. I think it's now lacrosse. There are some activities that are in there fairly regularly. Again, not as much as, for instance, our gymnastics program operate. So there would be, to your point, additional utilities over what they pay because of the hours. Other questions, comments?
When does this grant have to, when you ask for these grants, do they go by the order they come in? Or
No, all of them have to be submitted by July 31st. However, this is another one that is tied to being pro-housing. So this, I'm hoping our high pro-housing profile puts us high in the scoring. I have no idea. I'm not familiar with this grant at all, other than, in other words, this is the first year I've seen this grant. The bricks, I couldn't tell you. I think the K stands for kids, or it's something along the lines of that they're trying to get kids to put down their devices and go participate in recreational activities.
It's called Unplug and Play.
Unplug and Play is its nickname. Yeah. I don't know what, usually when it's all caps like that, it's some acronym, but it usually is, they come up with the word first and then they find an acronym they put in words to fit the acronym more than the other way around. But yeah, Unplug and Play is what it's typically referred to. So, and again, this is another nice one that's 80-20 matching, which means we only have to match 20%, which is great.
say it's due on the application is due on the 31st.
July 31st, that's correct. Which is kind of why we need to do this now.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Yep.
Millie Safranek, Henrietta resident. Just a couple of questions. I mean, I think that'd be great to have a community space. I think we all saw, like with the Pride event, that we could really use a large indoor space in addition to the spaces that we already have. I was just curious if there was any idea about the ongoing maintenance of the building, because the town does own a few buildings, but you're talking about like a $10 million upgrade and things like that. Building of this size is clearly going to need ongoing maintenance and updates and that type of thing, if you have anything along those lines.
I don't know the final, again, I have what his costs are. A couple things. I could envision us needing to add a cleaner to our staff, as well as probably another person in the maintenance mechanic staff. But again, in talking with them, it's not like they're constantly fixing it and stuff. because of that upgrade that they did when they acquired it.
Yeah.
More
like-
but as you say, it's just there's always something, right?
Right.
We're
all homeowners.
Right, right. So yes, there is some additional cost, and that's what I was saying. That's included in that cost of operation that, like I said, hopefully it would be covered by the largely by the fees from recreational programs and or if we decide to do the outside events, I'll call them. But essentially it becomes part of our budget. When we added the library, we added that. When we added the rec center, we added that. The town court, we sort of added that. We were paying for it as part of our rent. In the other facility, essentially you're still paying for it, even though it's not your building. So there's no question it does add cost. As far as, again, can we absorb it? We can. The big issue is the thing we can't absorb is the large capital cost for acquisition, which is why we're pursuing a grant.
And which department would you envision this coming under? I'm kind of thinking along the lines of like the golf course management and that type of thing. There's got
this would be recreation. Because again, so like I said, the main program, at least half of it would be half of Minette Hall, I should say, would be gymnastics.
Okay.
But then we were also looking at, like, right now, we don't have, when they have the floor hockey program, there's no boards. The rec center is not well set up for that. We could absolutely have an area that has boards, and so that could be used for recreational floor hockey, could be used for recreational indoor soccer, stuff like that. And then the other thing we were talking about putting in there too then is right now, where you look at where we have I can't call them batting cages, but we have those nets. They get in the way just being there, but also then when they stretch them out, they interfere with the ability to do basketball. So again, I would move those over there. Those could potentially be co-located with the hockey. And so that would free up a bunch of space at the rec center. Then one of the other things we would take a look at is what would we then do with the space that is currently the gymnastics area? One of the things I would definitely consider is the foam pit. Now we turn that more into a kids play area type of thing, especially for the preschool program and other stuff, but without having gymnastics there, then I'm not conflicting with that. And then maybe in the other portion, we set up some permanent pickleball nets. So it's a shallower depth. So when I'm hitting over the baseline, I'm not chasing it as far as you have to chase today. I don't have to worry about the balls going under the net and into the other court. In addition, obviously, when I'm putting pickleball up, nobody's playing basketball there. So it would free up a lot of other recreational space in the rec center by doing this.
Yeah. And I was just kind of curious too about the business, the potential for the business piece, as well as like the community benefit recreation piece. Because, as a town, this seems like a difficult balance to work out. And I know you don't have all the details because it's just in the discussion phase, planning stage right at the moment. But I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about how to manage a potential, event space where there's revenue and business.
If we're doing that, I would want to go outside.
Outside management company.
Yes, because again, there's also some stuff where you start to get into it's not something that is town business, if you will, right? We're essentially saying use our facility to generate additional income through these events. It's not town business. So I don't feel comfortable having the town run it.
Okay.
Would be my first thought. I'd want to have somebody that's what they do as a profession. they do these outside events, you know, and again, the way I would want to set it up, if we can, again, I don't know all the rules on it yet, but the way I would want to set it up, prefer to set it up, because this way there's no risk to us, is that whoever comes in, you know, so let's say it's 80-20, right? If they get revenue for this, we get 80%, they get 20%, rather than us pay them a fixed amount and we get all the revenue. I think it's just safer that way, because that way, if you hit a dry spell, town's not out money.
Yeah, a similar business model conceptually to the clubhouse over in the golf course area.
The clubhouse is going to be a little bit different, because we're just in that there's going to be, it's essentially that is rent, because that's full-time, the restaurant. So that, in that case, we will determine the rent, they'll pay us a rent, and they operate.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's a little different, because that's full-time them. For us, you know, so the other big thing I see being taking place at the Dome is, as they switch to these new voting machines, they won't need to have all the little election of, you know, a voting location in every election district. The reason they have to have that today is because they're all different ballots.
Right.
When you go to these new machines, you just get the scan with your district number. It brings your ballot up. You do your thing, vote the cast. So now I can have what some people refer to as a super site, similar to what they do for the early voting. This would be a great voting center for all of Henrietta. And then the other big advantage to that too is, oh, by the way, the people coming in who work in Henrietta can actually, on lunch, they can go vote there as long as they're anywhere, live anywhere in Monroe County. It makes for, you know, like I said, stuff like that. And as you pointed out, you know, boy, for rain dates, for any of our events, it would be a phenomenal facility for that. It's much more acoustic. Craig Eckert pointed out that the FSI, who currently owns the Dome, they did replace the roof. So in terms of major ticket items, that one's off the table.
Roof and HVAC system, I think you said.
And all the HVAC, yeah.
Okay.
So they basically replaced the roof on the Dome. And like I said, they put in a whole new HVAC system. In fact, Bruce Keeley, who does the design work for a lot of our facilities, he's the one who did that. He was very proud of that. If you go to the back, you see it. I always laugh at Hollywood, where people are walking through their HVAC units. That's rare. This one, it's big enough where you can walk through those, because again, as you think about it, you've got to move a lot of air to refresh the air within that Dome arena. So it's a pretty impressive system.
Great. Thank you so much.
You
Appreciate
bet.
it.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, if this passes, we will be voting again on if we're going to purchase.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We basically would then have to get to a final price. As far, you know, we'd have to see what the details, obviously, if the grant doesn't come back big enough, then we're not buying it unless we have some rich benefactor who wants to pick up the other portion of the cost, because we can't afford it from a capital purchase standpoint. I don't think he's a rich benefactor. Any other questions? We have people in the audience pointing at others saying they'll donate. Come on up.
Are you the rich benefactor that's coming up?
Not the benefactor part, but Gary Goodrich. BRICS stands for Building Recreational Infrastructure for Communities, Kids, and Seniors.
There we go.
So being the senior, that's the S. I appreciate that you're going after this. And as chair of the Historic Site Committee, in the past, we have discussed trying to designate the Dome as a historic site in Henrietta. The way the current code is, the owner has to decide they want to do that. And we're going back far enough, it wasn't Frank. But the owner at that time wasn't really interested. There was no real benefit for them to do that. I don't know if that could be potentially beneficial here or not, but I just thought I'd want to bring it up.
Other than once we're the owner, we can then designate. it.
Well, yes, yes, but whether that could be helpful with the state.
Yeah, in the application, I did mention that it's a historic property, you know, that it was the site of the Monroe County, built for the Monroe County Fairgrounds in 1972. And
Right.
so
Anyway,
I appreciate that.
Thanks, Gary.
I had the K right. That
You
was
did.
kids. And for the seniors, I'll note that, like I said, it would allow us to put in some permanent pickleball. So there's for your seniors. We'll get the seniors off their phones so they stop doom scrolling. All right, any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Nay.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members. Oh, sorry. Why don't I let Rob,
Take that one?
I jumped ahead, sorry.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 12-256, 2025. To issue a seeker negative declaration and commit to matching funds for the pursuit of the New York Plays grant for the main playground in Veterans Memorial Park.
Second. So this one is my favorite of the grants because this is a 90-10. We only have to come up with 10% of the matching. The plan for this one, again, as Plays indicates, it's another one this is for improvements of existing playgrounds and to make them more accessible. And so, you know, one of the challenges we've had a number of people talk about this. Our main playground at Veterans Memorial Park has wood chips. And so if you're a parent in a wheelchair, you can't go out there with your kids. In addition, if you have kids who are in wheelchairs or otherwise mobility impaired, it's very difficult for them there. And there aren't any real accessible playground equipment. So what this grant would pursue is the removal of all of those wood chips and replacing it with a rubberized surface. Similar to what you see at the playground near the rec center. And then in addition to the rubberized surface, we would install some accessible playground equipment, including a swing for somebody who is in a wheelchair. I will say they will also improve the regular swings because if you ever go by there, kids drag their feet and they kick out the wood chips. And so little kids need parents to lift them up into the swing. And I'm not talking little kids. I mean, anyone who's, you know, probably not a teenager because you get these big valleys under the swings that would go away if you had that rubberized surface. So I think this would be a huge benefit. And again, it's one of those things that just to give you an idea on the cost, it's about $600,000. Wow. So it's not cheap to put in that surface, but I think it would be extremely beneficial. And again, hopefully we'll get this one. We'll see.
Do we know how long the surface those rubberized things last?
I don't know that answer. I could find that out for you, but it's I've seen no real sign of anywhere on the one that we put in at the rec center probably 6 years ago. I do know they'd last a long time. And I do know that you can essentially equivalent of mill and resurface for a lot cheaper than it takes to put the thing in the first place. Any questions, comments on that one? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members.
Wait.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You did it because I read the last one. That's why I started to jump the gun last time and skipped Rob. So Fellow board members, I have resolution 12-257, 2025 to issue a negative declaration and commit to matching funding for the pursuit of a SHPO or State Historic Preservation Office Environmental Preservation Fund grant to assist with the preservation of several historic buildings in the West Hamlet.
Second.
So this one's a little strange. We will commit to the matching funds, but plain and simple, we will have an agreement from any of the participating properties that they will commit to the granting matching funds, or else they will not be their building will not be participating in this. So this is one where we are the applicant on behalf of the historic property owners. But the ones obviously, so the four that are currently here, and you heard me earlier talk to someone who lives in that near that intersection who's also interested in participating. It's the Cartwrights, the former Cartwrights Inn. That one's a significant chunk of change. They have committed to restoring the old inn, but obviously they need financial assistance to do that. It would be to the associated historic house with that. I was then approached by the Chase family with regards to Ken's Pizza Corner. If you go there, you'll see that some of the lime is starting to leach out of the masonry. And so that needs work. And then I was also approached by the fire hall, the West Henrietta Fire Hall, or Fire Hall number 2. They are interested in pursuing this. One of the requirements for this is that anyone participating, in addition to committing to those matching funds, they would also be required to register their property, not just with the town, it would have to be with the state or federal. I know the property owner who was here earlier, Mr. Heading, I'm pretty sure his is already registered with the state, so he's all set. I don't know the status of the others, other than I know that, Gary's indicating none of them are registered at the state. The only one that I know that's registered as the historic property is the house. The inn used to be, but a previous town board allowed them to take it off the registry. Basically, they'd have to have their application in, I think it's before September, in order to be eligible for the grant. The one thing that'll be interesting, and hopefully they're updating the windows, because I think in a previous discussion, the fire hall, there was some issues because they had modern windows. That was one of the things that the SHPO had discussed with regards to them potentially getting a registry. But I'm sure working with SHPO, we could work through all of that to get them on the registry. That unfortunately, the Eastern Hamlet, a lot of the historic buildings succumbed to fire. In the Western Hamlet, we're pretty lucky. We've got most of the buildings, obviously Chapman's Hotel's no longer there. But a remarkable number of those historic buildings are still there, and we'd like to keep it that way. And so pursuing this grant to help them preserve their buildings, I think is a great thing. So again, we're not spending tax dollars on this. We're just pursuing the grant. They would have to provide the matching funds. Any questions, comments?
I had a question. I think you touched upon this at workshop. I just wanted to clarify. The churches in the West Hamlet are not eligible under this grant program. Is that correct?
That is I'm going to have to go back and check to make sure, because there's a couple different grants. There was also a Main Street grant that had a better matching fund rate. The problem with that one, we had to switch to the EPF one because that one there was a requirement that you create housing out of it, including some percentage that's affordable housing. That's only potentially happening at the Cartwright's property. So it would not have been usable by the others. Even at the Cartwrights, it was questionable because they're not looking to turn the historic properties into housing. Well, that's not true. The old house is like 4 or 6 apartments. I don't remember, but they're already apartments.
Right.
So this would just help upgrade them. But I'm pretty sure this is the one that there is a separate grant specifically for the, churches, synagogues, temples. I will verify that. If this one does allow, then I will be reaching out to the three churches on the corner there. It's Baptist, I don't remember what the other two are. But there's three houses of worship right at that corner. If the EPF does allow them to participate, I'll reach out to them to see if they want to. Any other questions?
Would we file it for the church or would they do it by themselves?
So again, if they are eligible under this, if they commit to it, then we would include that on our list of buildings.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? As you can tell, these are all due, as I mentioned, they're all due July 31st. This is, if you want to know what I'm going to be doing all of July with a lot of support from my staff, this is it. If you've never done a grant application through the consolidated funding application, God bless you, because it's non-trivial. The amount of stuff they ask for is insane. So fortunately, we have a good team here. Special shout out to Luke Bushin, who's been producing the plans and maps for me. Craig's been helping with some like one of the requirements. Nobody uses these much anymore. You have to show the site on a 1 to 2400 scale map. They don't give you another option. Nobody uses those anymore. So Craig was able to find a repository of the old USGS maps and pull it down and put the thing on it. We've got to do budgeting for this. The whole 9 yards. So it's a whole lot of work. Any other questions, comments? So I will follow up. I'll send something out to the board when I've confirmed what is and is not in the EPF. Again, specifically whether the churches are allowed under the EPF. And again, if they are, I'll reach out to the three churches there. And hearing and seeing no further comment, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-258/2025 to approve a special event permit for the Genesee Valley Henrietta Moose Family Center.
Seconded.
So we used to do this through a special use permit. And talking about it, that didn't make as much sense since the special use permit typically is permanent, although we used to put an expiration date on it. Anytime it involves the sale of alcohol, the liquor authority wants to see local municipal approval before they will extend the premises to cover that event. So this provides that means without doing it through a special use permit. So this is the new process we're doing. The cost is the same. In fact, we've actually lowered it for that cost for folks like anybody who's doing a single event. In this case, this one is a no, I think this one's a single event.
September 9th.
This one's just the single event. But all the rules we had under the previous system are still there under this one. It's just, we switched it from being a special use permit to a special event permit. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-259/2025 to approve a special event permit for the Saint Demetria Macedonian Orthodox Church.
Second.
So this is their 26th annual event. but if you've never seen one of these permits before, that's because this is the first year that they're going to include the sale of alcohol. So without the sale of alcohol, they haven't needed the approval because it's part of the church business. But again, if they're going to be serving alcohol, they need the special event permits. They need the municipal approval basically in order to extend the liquor license. So that's why this is the first one we've ever seen for their for the Macedonian Festival. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 12-260-2025 to authorize the purchase of Microsoft licensing for the town of Henrietta.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 12-261, 2025 to authorize the purchase of the Dan User Mega Mixer, it's a cement mixer for the Buildings and Grounds Department.
Second. So this mixer will allow us to do a lot of stuff that we currently have to outsource, such as doing the concrete around like the inlets for our sewer, doing some single flags, like, so let's say we have to rip up a section of sidewalk when we go to replace that. It's a mixer that attaches, I think it's to our Bobcat. And they can throw a lot of bags in. The other option you have is to go get a cement truck, which when you're only using, you pay almost the same amount for, 1 yard versus 9 yards, because it's the cost of the truck's time to get out there and the wear on that vehicle. So it's just not cost effective to do it that way. This will be a much better approach to doing that. So
this will also do catch basins and stuff?
they can use it to do catch basins, they can use it to do sidewalk replacement, any place where we're doing, concrete, like I said, in the roughly 1 yard or 2 yard realm where it doesn't make sense to bring in a cement mixer.
Great.
The cement truck, sorry. Any other comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 12-262, 2025 to authorize the purchase of Wenco large metro message board for the highway department.
Second.
So if you remember, we had put about $100,000 of the excess fund balance from last year towards, it was the purchase of the equipment necessary to do pothole repairs on state roads. And the three pieces of equipment we needed was the hot box to actually make the hot asphalt mix. It was a crash attenuator to go on the back of the truck, to be at the rear of the column of vehicles. And then it was to have a message board, arrow board. Rather than buy just an arrow board, which is about half the cost of this, or maybe a third, we decided to buy a message board so that we can use it to put out, like, that Calkins Road is going to close for the 4th of July, or other, for advertising when we have the parade. The county used to have a message board, but I guess it died and they didn't replace it. So having ours to be able to, because those were the two things. Anytime we're doing road closures, we'd like to advertise it ahead of time so people can plan. So not having access to theirs, it made sense to, rather than again, just to buy the Aero board, to buy this one, which will still serve as the Aero board, but has a lot more utility besides that. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow town board members, I have resolution number 12-263/2025 to appoint Patty Ziner to the Historic Site Committee.
Seconded.
So David Oliver, who's currently a member, he's being deployed through June 2026. So we have a temporary opening. And so what we did is reached out to a prior member to fill in during that time, and Patty has agreed to do that. So basically, she will fill in until the end of the 2026, or if he comes back sooner. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow town board members, I have resolution number 12-264/2025 to enter into a contract with Green Spark Solar for the installation of a 29.975 kilowatt rooftop solar panel energy system under the town's CREST grant.
Second.
So if you feel like you've already approved this, we did. However, two things. Basically, we went out to bid. Green Spark was the winning bid. That $53,000 that they had to be under, that was how much we had left in the CREST grant. They came in at $52,905. But the big thing was they had the largest panel by far. Was almost, I think it was more than double the next one from a capacity standpoint. One of the things that we are doing there to get to that net price, there's applying two grants. One is a NYSERDA incentive grant, and one is a federal incentive grant. The way they'd originally written the contract, it was we pay it, and then when the grant comes in, we reimbursed. I pointed out you can't do that. We went out to bid. The bid had to be under 53,000. So the way we're doing it now is our cost is that amount, and then when the incentive comes in, we will sign it over to them. That puts them, they understand, that puts them on the risk should the Trump administration end the federal incentives. They were willing to absorb that risk. The other reason we had to do this is there was a slight change in the one formula, and so now instead of 52,905, it's 52,906.10. It's only $1.10 more, but it exceeds the previous not to exceed number, so we upped that not to exceed number. So, like I said, if it sounds familiar, it very much is. Any questions on that? And they'll get started right away. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 12-265/2025 to acknowledge the receipt of the May 2025 revenue and expense reports.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Fellow town board members, I have resolution 12-266, 2025, to hire personnel and make the attached changes.
Second. Any questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 12-267, 2025, to adopt local law number 11 of 2025, to amend the zoning code of the town of Henrietta to clarify uses allowed within a special use, uses allowed with a special use permit and prohibited uses in planned commercial districts.
Second.
So this, obviously, we already had the public hearing and a lot of discussion on that. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Nay.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-268, 2025, to approve the cybersecurity insurance proposal as negotiated by one group on behalf of the town.
Seconded.
So this one was added between the workshop and now because the insurance carrier broker basically got us the coverage end of day yesterday. And oh, by the way, the policy starts July 7th.
It's kind of important.
This is the way they always do this stuff. Because every year our liability insurance, we're always getting the nasty grants from the county. Your insurance policy is about to expire. They always seem to do the updates within the last week of it's I don't know why they can't get further out in front, but anyway, so sorry about the last minute notes, but the good news is it's actually right about the same. I think it's actually just slightly less than what we were paying last year, which is unusual for costs to not go up. So,
Especially cyber insurance. Might not work when.
and I think part of that's a lot because we've been, putting in some new procedures in place, and I think that's what's helped a lot is the work of our IT staff, as well as we do a lot of the training and the stuff for folks to be able to spot phishing attacks and things like that. So that helps. Any other comments, questions? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Do we have any miscellaneous or committee reports from the board?
Miscellaneous. Yesterday when we were talking about the message board after the meeting, I spoke with our attorney and we, doing the work on the state roads. I just want to make sure that we have something that we're not liable. Now we're currently the state's responsible for the road that we don't have any liability, but I want to make sure that we get something from the state.
We will. That'll be part of our IMA.
Okay.
We have that today with the county when we do
Okay.
work on the county roads.
Okay.
Yep.
Mike, you met with respect to the signage?
What's that?
He was just saying it came up because of the signage,
Because
it's
right.
part of the work. That's part of the 3 pieces of equipment that would enable us to do work on state roads. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right. That's
What
why I brought it up.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Committee report or?
Yeah, the library board met last night. They're very excited that the work on the windows upstairs has been completed. Full removal, rebuild, and reinstall took about 3 weeks to do. I know many of the people that worked over there commented on how weird it was to hear the outside in the library, birds and traffic and stuff like that. Want to give a thank you to Courtney Finnerty for organizing the Pride event on Monday, and also to Pam and her staff for the flexibility they showed in allowing us to move indoors, and a great thank you to the community also for their support, and looking forward to the 4th of July coming up.
Yeah, I just want to again reiterate how unique it is, not only that we have this event, it's had unanimous support from the board across party lines. You know, this board, every year I've served, we've had a, well, I'll call it mixed board, people from both parties. Every member I've served with, we all put the community first, politics second. That is such a rarity in today, especially as you move up into the state and national levels. But even in a number of towns, they're running into those problems. And it's a huge kudos to my fellow board members, going all the way back to those I first served with, 3 of whom are serving again today. You know, it's really heartening that everybody embraces that town for all, and like I said, everybody puts the town ahead of politics. That's just sadly doesn't happen a lot in politics today. So I think it's worth stating that. There was something else I was going to say, but I forgot it. Anything else?
I just want to, also thank Courtney and the town staff and everybody involved with the Pride event the other day. It was a great event. So kind of had to be, I moved around quickly, so I'm sure that wasn't that easy to do, but they seemed to pull it off, and I think everybody had a good time. So,
And based on the strength of that downpour that happened right around 5 o'clock, that's a darn good thing we moved it indoors. So Pam made the final call on that. There was some waffling, and she basically said, let's just do it.
Yeah.
And she moved stuff around and got it in there. So kudos to her and her team.
Yep. It's the whole town staff that worked on it and everything else. So
yeah, and when I say her team, it's also there's folks from the DPW who help out with that as well.
Right.
So the flag is flying. If people notice that the state flag wasn't up, that's because that flagpole, the raising and lowering mechanism was not functioning. It's been repaired, or was being repaired. I can't see if it's, in theory, it should be done today. No, the state flag. I will note that they were finally installing the exterior signage for the town court today.
Okay.
So we couldn't go with what the original plans were, which were individually lit letters, and that's because when the architect went to those Spanish hanging panel things, you would have had you couldn't drill each one and bring wire out separately to each light, so we had to go to more of a box look. But it does have the raised letters through it, and I believe hopefully it matches what I believe the judges picked. We gave them a couple different color choices, but they chose the white raised letters on a blue background because that's what was installed. So hopefully it matches. If it doesn't, I'll have them go fix it. But I said, no, we were talking about this morning. I said, either way, we're getting this one installed now because I'm tired of there not being a sign for the town court. So
yeah, a lot of people ask about that building.
Yeah, that's it. Let's just say those had I known what was going to be involved with those panels, I would have said switch to something else. But they're there. We have the good news is they took some down to get the sign up, so we have some extras if they ever get damaged. We've got them in storage. So anything else? Do we have any comments or discussion items from the public? And hearing and seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing no objections, meeting adjourned.